Hello, it's Victoria from Coastal Themes, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can make a website from a template only within 48 hours. And actually it might even take you less time than that, so let's jump straight into it. What you're seeing here is one of Coastal Themes templates. This is called Eden, and you can get this from coastalthemes.com or on the Framer marketplace. It's a really great template for SaaS businesses, but also for what I'm going to be using it for today, which is for a agency. And a lot of our themes are kind of catered either for SaaS businesses, for agencies, for interior design companies, for portfolios, for lots of different things. But oftentimes we have so many blocks available, you can kind of make it your own and use it for whatever you need it for. So take a look through our themes, see what you're liking, see what works, and then go from there. So I have noticed one thing which might not be the best thing for my agency business is that we have a blog, but we don't have like a case studies CMS collection. So I'm going to show you working from something that isn't 100% exactly where I need it. Because I like the design of this one, I'm going to show you how we can build in our case studies section, how we can reuse components to kind of get it to where we need it. And that is why I've said 48 hours, because you'll do some on day one, you'll go away, you'll think about it, you'll come back on day two, you'll finish up the final touches, you'll add in your content, you'll check it with other people maybe, and then you can pretty much go live, buy a domain, put it live, and then go from there. So when you come into one of our themes, you'll see we have a lot of things going on. So sometimes you might have multiple home options to choose from, different kind of styles for the homepage. This one only has one, which actually makes my decision process and decision-making skills much easier to deal with, because sometimes too many options is very overwhelming. So when you're trying to do something in 48 hours, you have to kind of be good at making those decisions. So we've got some components that are pre-made. So if you jump into the assets panel and you click on project, you can see we have a few folders here. So we have navigation, we have utilities, we have sections, cards, accordion, sliders, and things specifically for tablet. So if I double click on this header section, you can see it takes me to my navigation, and then all these menu items are linked within. I also have a drop down option, and that is its own little trigger. And so a few of the assets are kind of nested within one another, and it is your job to kind of click through this and find out what you're using and what you don't need. So things like buttons, you'll probably need buttons. And you can see we give you a lot of options of different buttons. So just taking a look at what the theme gives to you and what you'll need moving forward. The main thing that you're going to be changing is ultimately the branding and the colors and the images. So those are things you can kind of do, might sit within assets. So like the site logo, if you come into the site logo asset, you can see that it has a fill with my logo image, and you would simply click choose image and drop your logo in here. So let's go back. And then all of these things here, these are cards, but this isn't a component, this isn't an asset. So you can simply click on this and change the image yourself. And then we jump down to these logos, and this will be a carousel. So it's really important that you preview your theme so you can see the animations. So you can see here we have on appear animations coming in, and knowing whether you like this, whether it works with your brand, so you know whether you need to change it or just completely remove the animations and make the page a bit more static. But you can see here, like I said, these logos are moving on like a ticker carousel. They're not movable by the user, they just move by themselves. So that means that if I click on this is actually a component in of itself. I've got all my logos up here. They're all kind of dragged into this asset. And then within this whole section, there is a ticker. And you can see that the speed, the direction, the spacing, the sizing, kind of what happens when you hover, is controlled all on this right-hand bar. So if I want the speed to be even slower, I can just reduce the percentage here. So if we go back to home and keep moving down the page, then we have some other elements, some of which are also components, some of which aren't. So these aren't, but these blocks are, so like this listing card. And depending on what theme you purchased, Framer usually requires for it to be on the marketplace that there needs to be responsive assets and components. We've got a desktop version, a tablet version, and a mobile version, which just stacks the content and also chooses one of the images. Again, we've got some more blocks here, another section with some more cards. We'll also have different cards, large and small. And then we have some more cards down here, and these have a nice animation on them when the layer's in view and they appear. And then we have our testimonial section. So you can see this will be a slideshow kind of testimonial, and you will have to edit the component and edit the individual sections to edit the content, and the content will all be editable from here. Although this is another component nested within. Again, there's phone, tablet, and desktop. So just clicking into each component and clicking all the way through to find out what and where the content is editable from. Sometimes you have to edit straight into the canvas like this, or sometimes you have to edit from the right-hand side. You can see here, question, answer. And this is because on the main component, these have been made variables. And so you can see question here corresponds to the question here. So just wrapping your head around how things are structured. So I would take a good hour or so going through the theme. It might take you less, it might take you more, and just understanding how things work, where the content's source of truth lives, and what you can edit and start moving around. Then we'll look at the blog. So the blog is linked to our CMS collection. We know that because we've got these little stacked circles. So that means it corresponds to a collection. This is CMS up here. So I can see this is a card, and the content on this card is linked to a variable, and then I've linked the variable on this side to the CMS title, for example. So if I jump into the CMS, we've got blog, and we've got all our different blog posts. Now you can see there's a few fields, and these fields obviously are 100% editable from your side. So you can see title, date, slug, image, and then content, and you can kind of do whatever you want here. So you can edit the fields, and you can see if you need an extra field, you can add one, and then you have to make sure that it visually corresponds on the other side. So if we jump into blog, so we've got our main blog listing page, and we've got our blog detail page. So you can see here, this is pulling in the blog title, this will be the image, and this will be the content. But if you wanted to select a color to change the background, you could do this. So if I quickly show you how that would be done, we will edit the fields, we will add a color, we'll set the default to be one of the theme colors, but I can kind of adjust that. So if I want the background of this one to be yellow because confidence, yellow and bright, when I'm in the detail page, you can see here it's pulling the generic background color, but if I click on fill with a plus, I can set the variable to be background, and it will change the color. So you can start adding your own fields and then working them into the content using your skills from Framer already. But if that's too complicated for you, all you need to do to change the color of the background, change the colors across your whole theme, is to change the color variables. So if we were to bring this up to speed with my own branding, maybe my branding is more pink led than blue led, let's say. So I would come into assets, scroll down to color, and you can see we've got all our theme colors. So I want my brand to sit more on the pink red side. So I'm just going to move everything across. Same with the background color. So now I've kind of changed all the colors. You'll notice that the logo obviously is an image, so that won't change. And these are all images in the brand colors, so those haven't changed. But you can see all the other backgrounds and all the other buttons have changed. I'm not sure I'm sold on this particular color combination, but we'll go with it. Let's just double check. like these neutrals are in the correct color scale, because they're all sitting in blue. I want them to sit in pink red. Okay, so now we're pretty much in this pink red zone, which is cute. It's cute. It's not my favorite, but we're gonna go with it. That's gonna be my brand. So what I would then recommend is clicking through all the other pages and deciding what you need and what components you need. And if there's sections that you're not needing, which you don't think you need to save for later, then you can simply delete them. But if there are sections which aren't particularly components, so like we've got these blocks, but we've got this Why Choose Us section. I don't think I need this now, but I want to save this entire section. What I would do is right click and create a component, and that would be the Why Choose Us. And when you create a component, you'll see here it goes into your asset library, and we've got desktop, laptop, tablet, and phone. Phone hasn't exactly done it the way I wanted it. So actually, let's see why. It's because this is tiny. So you can see that asset will actually just fill, because the width will be set to fill. So you can leave it as that, or you can just do this. So now I've saved this, it's in my asset library, I can delete it, and then I won't need to deal with that now. But if I do want it later, I can come here, and I've got Why Choose Us. I could add this to the sections folder, and that would probably be smartest. But that's completely up to you how you organize your assets. Moving on, I think what I'm going to do next is keep going through these pages, keep seeing what I need and what I don't need, and things like pricing I actually just won't need at all, because this is going to be for an agency. But even in advance of this, what you will want to do is just make a copy of the theme. So you're working on a second copy of the theme and you still have the first copy available if you needed to start over or get anything from there later. So I would just delete this page. And then I'm sitting with 4 pages. So home, about, blog, features, and contact. I would change features to services. And then I can start going in and changing up the content. So I'm going to come back, change the content on the home page, and then we will look at the CMS collection and making that more of a case studies collection. What you should notice is that one of your pages will be the source of truth for all the others. So I had the heading here, and when I edit on desktop, it rolls it out onto all. You can see that it's changing across all my breakpoints. And then this applies to most of the content on desktop. When you figure that out, you'll know that you only need to change the content and copy on one page, not all of them. So I've changed some more content, but I'm looking at this email address insert field, and I'm wondering whether I need this. The next thing I would be wondering is what actually happens once I input this. And because this is a form, we want to know the full functionality of it. And so you'll have to see the form field here, and you can see this form has no actions. So when you have forms, you do need to link the actions to make sure that the data you're receiving into them is going where you need it. So you can send it to email, so that will just arrive into your inbox. You can send it to a specific webhook, so of another platform you want to send it to, and you can send it to Google Sheets. You can also redirect the user on success to another page and add any tracking. So that would just be an ID on the form to make sure you know which form has sent the data through. There are plugins which you can use, and then you can kind of drop in and just copy the styling yourself. So if I needed the MailChimp plugin, there is a MailChimp plugin here, and that would be a form. Then you would have to style these up yourself. Then I can link to my MailChimp URL. I can add a success state screen, or I can do an overlay. Again, add tracking, control the layout. So this MailChimp component is particularly flexible, so you can kind of add all your styling. So deleting that, remember to click on form and add these send to and redirects, and that will be on every form. So we also have a contact page. So clicking on the form here and making sure this sends to email, webhook, or Google Sheets. A really nice idea for this is if your business uses Slack, for example, and you receive an inquiry, sending it to Slack is also possible. And then you can use webhooks and link that to Zapier. You will need the paid version of Zapier to do that though, but it's a really great idea, and then you can see things really quickly. So then I'm going to look at these images, and what I'm actually going to say is I don't want these images for now. I do like them, but I don't need them. So what I'm going to do is create the component and save that and then delete it. And then you can see I've got an issue with the spacing. So then I can look at spacing. So what I'm going to do is probably add spacing within this container and add padding at the bottom. I'm going to add around 56, maybe more. And then you can check across breakpoints if you're happy with that. So we still have this image container here. I'm just going to delete that. And then I can control, when I start editing phone, obviously, it will only apply to phone. It's only when you edit the kind of source of truth breakpoint, which is desktop, that it'll apply to others. So if you want to change kind of little nuances in mobile and tablet, you can do these and it won't impact your desktop breakpoint. And then if I didn't want this form at all, I could simply go into Assets, click on Utilities, and I've got a button, and I can just put in a button instead, and then I could actually delete this whole form. And then I can change the variant of the button. And then I can add the custom link to a page. I'll make this link to contact. And there you have it. So now I've changed my whole hero section from something that's very SaaS oriented to something that is now more agency appropriate. As you work down the page, you'll decide what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep in terms of images, in terms of copy. I think I quite like these sections, and I can change this content. We can see that I can change the text here, but the images are locked in the component. So what I can do is make these variables. Image 1 and image 2. And then I can change that directly here. So what I can do is actually just use Unsplash. So by clicking on plugins, you can use Unsplash, which just gives you some free images. And I can drop in the content that I think is appropriate. And then you can see here, it's becoming more and more of an agency vibe. So then let's quickly touch on fonts. So if I jump into assets, we've looked at colors. We haven't looked at text yet. So we have all these text styles. And if your font, chances are your font won't be Instrument Sans. If it is, that works great and perfectly. If your font is another, you can adjust and choose your fonts here. You can change the weight and the styles. Fonts will usually have breakpoints, so the size and the width and the letter and the line spacing will all be controllable here. So large would be your desktop, medium would be your kind of tablet, and small would be your mobile. So you can see how that H1 heading changes size as you go down the breakpoints, and you can control this all here. So if you wanted your breakpoint to be way bigger, or your medium, which would be your tablet, to be way smaller, you can change that all there. Same with mobile, and I think I actually quite like it smaller on mobile. Line height, I often like to use percentages instead of pixels, so I'll usually do kind of 130% or 120 for headings and 140 for body. And you can control all these little nuances in the text styles. So I would then go through each of your heading styles and your paragraph styles and make sure that the font is updated, your breakpoint kind of styles and your sizing is set to what you want it to be. There's no bulk way of doing this, and if there is, let me know, but you'll have to manually go through this. So then once you're kind of happy with the direction of your theme and with the content, and you've kind of figured out how to change the content here, you might look at components and think, I don't actually want like an icon. So I would create a variant of this, and I would call it large no icon, and then I'd make one for small, small, no icon. And then I can change this to large, no icon. Oh, we need to remove the icon. So make sure you're editing the correct one. And for this one, now I can see these are large, no icon. And then you'd have to go to your other breakpoints. I should have changed this here first. Large, no icon, and small, no icon. And if you're happy with the spacing, so small, I think it just needs a bit of padding top and bottom. That's a bit better. I can see now I've lost the icons just like I wanted, and I've kind of made it a bit more my own. These stats I might also use, but I do like the section, so I'll create this as a component and then delete that section. Testimonials I think are really great. This all has custom styling, so I can see I've got this slideshow component with the arrows, and these are images for the arrows. So what I would do is create my own arrows with my own colors, and I would replace them, but I can just clear them for now and change the fill to be the fill of my choice. As for these would be images. The image box has a background color, and I can change this. I'm actually going to set it as my theme color. So now this is all branded, which is fab. That was easy. That's the great way the theme was built. And then obviously FAQs, you'll want to go in, click in the component, and these FAQs might sit on multiple pages. So just checking where that lives by just having a click through other pages. No FAQs in about. There's FAQs also sitting in services. So just keeping in mind that you'll have FAQs that are global. So if you need different versions of this, you might want to create another component, or just duplicate this component and edit it, name it FAQs services, and that will be applied to your services page, for example. But you can see here that these colors weren't updated. So what we want to do is go into there's accordion single FAQ fields, open and closed. I don't actually want this to be my theme color. I'll make it that one. And I will make phone the same, theme color 3. So now you can see if I preview this, this is the services page, and I open a question, it's now in my brand colors. And then I change the content there and change the content on this whole page. So then we're going to look at our blog quickly. So again, I spoke about how you can add fields to make this more of like a case studies page, for example. So I'm going to call this case studies. I'm probably going to rename the whole thing to case studies, and then rename this page to case studies, just to make sure that all the messaging is in line. I'm actually going to say our case studies. And this is a great opportunity to kind of explore the on-page editing tool, which I went through in a previous video, and I will link that up above. That allows you to publish this to the web and then edit directly on the web. So let me show you how that works. So if you click publish, your site will publish to a staging domain. So you can see here, Compassionate Clicks 981510.framer.app. And if I open that, that opens in my browser. You need to make sure that you're logged into Framer. So let's just double check. I am logged into Framer. There we go. Okay, so that's appeared. So once it processes that you're logged in, you can edit content on the page by clicking edit content, and you can edit on the fly. And if there's components, it'll allow you to edit the variables. So like here, like the image is in a variable here, so I would have to set it in Framer to be a variable so I can edit. Once we're done, we click finish editing, and they will change as kind of draft changes. They won't go live, but you'll be able to see them here in the editor. And then when you're ready, you can publish them live depending on what's changed. So if you have kind of a site admin, they'd probably want to approve the changes before you push that on. So that's just a cool way to incorporate on-page editing. It allows you to see things in situ, so see things on extra large screens, see things on mobile, and kind of decide how the content looks. Maybe you want to edit the copy and the images on the fly. So once you've linked your forms, I'd say that's one of the most important things to remember. You also want to make sure to update your heading section. So I've got some of these drop downs. I won't need drop downs, so I'm actually going to delete that. And I've renamed these pages. So this is called services, about, pricing we don't have, and contact we still have. I might actually want to add a success stories or case studies section. And then you have to go through these and make sure they're linked to the correct pages. So this is linked to home, this is linked to services, this will be linked to case studies, this will be linked to about, and this will be linked to contact. And then get started, you can kind of set this link. So this goes to Framer. I want to link this to probably contact, and I might change this copy to contact us. And then you want to make sure that these changes have rolled out to tablet. So you can see here that the button needs to be changed. And then we've got all these pages that we will want to edit. And this is a separate component nested. So I would just go in and delete from the primary. Blog we can remove, and then we're missing contact us. So we change the link. And then that should update, and we can delete that. And then we can just make sure that the height fits the content, and that will snap it. And then that should also change our mobile. And same here, height, we can make it 100% viewport height. I think on mobile that works. On tablet, it might work on smaller tablets, but I think I want it just to be a bit different. So on tablet, it will be a shortened menu, and then on mobile, it will be a full height menu, which I think is great. The last one you'll have to check is your footer, and check through all of these. So we might not need 404 in the footer, but terms of service, privacy policy we'll want to leave. Get started we can remove, and then you'll see that the spacing might change. So you can click on here. If we click on layout and click advanced, we can align it to the right, and we can decrease the columns to 3. And then you can see it's all shifted to the right hand side. You'll want to change the copyright info. Let's just quickly change these. And has that rolled out to mobile? It should have. Perfect. So now I've changed my footer navigation, I've changed my header navigation, I've changed the content. I've talked you through adjusting the blog posts to be case studies. And if you needed more images, because this case study content is kind of managed in the editor, I can add the images in the editor. So unless you wanted particular image blocks, you could add those and then drag them in manually and make sure they're linked to the corresponding images. But for the sake of it just being a little bit easier to control, I will put all my content in this kind of WYSIWYG editor. Right. So now what would be the final things you need to look at? So 404 page, things like that, you can take a look at. We've got some privacy policies and legal docs. So that is controlled in our CMS. We have a privacy policy. Again, you can paste over this. Terms and conditions, again, you can paste over this. And then what we click is this Framer icon. We go to site settings and we'd open settings. And then we could see general settings. So like my site title, these are all kind of our SEO content that will be pulled into Google, pulled into search engines, and pulled into kind of social previews. So you'd want to edit your site title. If your site is not in English, you can adjust the language here. Site description. And then you can preview what this will look like in a search engine, we've got the favicons, so you can upload your own favicon. It gives you the pixel guidance, so you might want to make that on Figma or Canva or another platform. Social preview, that will be what happens if you paste a link into Facebook, for example. It will show this, or in LinkedIn, it will show this image. We've got Google Analytics. If you're using GA, you can paste in your Google Analytics code here. If you just want to do it in this way, you can also add custom code into the head tag. Well, we've got start of head, end of head, start of body, end of body. That's just advanced if you need it. Then what is most important is probably your domain. You'll need to upgrade your Framer into a paid site plan, and you can connect the domain you own. And you can see it'll prompt you to view the plans and adjust. If you are looking for money off your first year of using Framer, you can use our link in our description, and that will give you a nice little discount for signing up with us, Coastal Themes, on Framer. If you are kind of moving a website from an old platform, let's say Webflow, to Framer, you might have some redirects you need to put in place. So if your services page used to be called Offering, you'd want to redirect Offering to Services by pasting in the old URL and then pasting in your new URL here. Again, you need to be on a plan to enable this. But domain is probably your main thing you want to look at. And then what you can do is go into each page and adjust the SEO content for each page, so the title, the page description. If you don't adjust this yourself, it will just use your general global settings. You can also decide if you want to show the page in site search or engines. And then when you're ready to put it live, you would hit publish to your proper domain, and that would be live, and you can open it in a new link. And that is pretty much all you need to know about getting a theme, adjusting it, going through the assets and customizing it to what you need, what you like, making sure it's all linked correctly, making sure all the contact forms and any forms are linked to send data to where you need it, and also to adjust the assets to kind of customize it to what you need, change images, look at the CMS collections, add your SEO content, and then finally putting it live to your own domain. So this whole process might take you longer or shorter depending on how much customizing you want to do on the theme. If you are looking for more specific kind of customizing tips, let us know and we will make a tutorial for those. That is it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye.